Hello, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's event, this lovely Friday, with KJ Dell'Antonia celebrating playing the Witch card, which is a new novel that is described, and I think is a really accurate and lovely description as Gilmore Girls meets practical magic, just in time for fall and spooky season to get started. My name is Jenny. I am one of the co-owners of Mysterious Galaxy, and I will be KJ's in conversation partner for the evening. And I will tell you a little bit more about her shortly. But in the meantime, you will see the chat to the right. Feel free to share any love or shout outs or engage in any way. If you go to the right, there's also going to be a little box with a question mark in it, and that's where you can ask questions. So in the end of the event, we will move into an audience Q&A portion, and that's where we will be pulling questions from. So please do share your questions as we go. Excuse me. And I think that's it. Thank you, KJ, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted.
Yeah. So before we get into the book fully, we thought we would play a little sort of spooky get to know each other speedish round questions. I mean, sometimes they go fast, sometimes they can spark debate. But oh my goodness, I forgot to read the bio. That's what I'm going to read the bio first. Okay. Official introduction. KJ Dell'Antonia is the former editor of the New York Times Motherlode and the co-host of the #AmWriting podcast, as well as the author of How to Be a Happier Parent in Her Boots and the instant New York Times bestseller and Reese's book club pick, The Chicken Sisters. She lives with her family on a small farm in Lyme, New Hampshire, but retains an abiding love for her childhood in Texas and Kansas. And we also have Blackberry joining us today as well.
She's a little unwilling. I might let her get down in a minute, but
that's okay. Whatever she needs. All right. So hopefully these are some little fun questions. Just again, getting ready for Halloween season. But to start, do you prefer spooky or scary?
Spooky.
Okay. Sabrina the Teenage Witch or Hocus Pocus?
Sabrina.
Sabrina? No. I used to read the Sabrina comics growing up. So.
I feel like that might be it's more of a generation thing than it is. It's not like I've seen them both and I strongly prefer Sabrina. It's more, Sabrina is like my childhood and Hocus Pocus was just more like just a thing. Like, cool, I like that. That's fun. But yeah. So Sabrina. Also, before that, she was Clarissa Explains It All to You. So, yeah.
That was my favorite show growing up, was Clarissa Explains It All for whatever reason.
Yeah, because, I mean, that was some deep stuff.
I know. And she had a pet alligator.
I
mean, come on.
Yeah.
All right, practical magic or the witches?
Practical magic.
Beetlejuice or The Nightmare Before Christmas?
Beetlejuice. I won't say it 3 times.
Nice. I'm with you on that one for sure. That was the Tim Burton off of the two. The next one is, did you ever dress up as a witch for Halloween? And if so, how many times have you been a witch for Halloween?
Oh, I have been a witch. I mean, as an adult, I've been a witch for Halloween pretty much every Halloween. As a kid, no. I did not do. I did like sort of obscure witchy things, like spirits of. My costumes always had to be explained, which like a joke is probably not a good thing.
I mean, whatever it is. What is scarier, ghosts or zombies?
Zombies. Yeah, because they can touch you, and like ghosts. I feel like ghosts can only move objects, but zombies can actually. And also, you become a zombie. I don't know if you become a ghost. I don't know. It seems way worse. They
feel like they would like not have a good texture to touch.
Also true.
Right? Like.
Yeah. And also, like, there are people you used to know, potentially. I mean, I don't know. The whole zombie thing.
That one works both ways. right?
Yeah.
Because a ghost
Oh,
could be
that's
someone you know.
someone you used to know. I don't know. And also, I mean, you don't hear of like hordes of ghosts attacking, whereas zombies seem to come in hordes. So I think that might be part of the problem. It might just be sheer numbers. Like if one zombie versus one ghost, I don't know. It might be a different thought.
Nice. What is the scariest book you've ever read?
I'm gonna go with Grady Hendrix's How to Sell a Haunted House. That was I had to finish that with like my eyes like I'm reading. I'm not reading. Okay, maybe I'm reading. Oh no, I'm not reading. That was a tough one.
What is the scariest movie you've ever seen?
I am not one for scary movies. They stick. Like I can see like one scene for something and be forever. I'm forever haunted by a particular scene in the movie Independence Day. I'm
Which
sorry.
one?
I am too susceptible. So I do not see, I've not really seen any scary, like I'm haunted by like commercials for scary movies.
I'm a big fan of reading Wikipedia summaries of scary movies before I decide to watch them.
I can sort of fake up a good conversation about them because I have read the
Mhm.
plots of many
Yeah.
of them, but I have not actually managed to. The Blair Witch Project, I think, is the only one I can actually claim to have sat through the entirety of, and really nothing. That's like an early TikTok video. Like nothing scary, particular.
It's
It's just
true.
like things. Everything happens off screen while a camera runs through the woods.
It's true. But when you watch it, like, in the woods, like, in a cabin like
Oh
I
yeah,
did, it's, like, really scary. Uh, to see the future, would you rather be able to see into a crystal ball or get a premonition when you touch an object?
mm, hmm. Which one of those would be more useful? Prob Do I control the crystal ball? I think the crystal ball.
Because nice.
Yeah,
What's your favorite candy?
Keith bars. Or there's a particular Haribo I really like. So it depends on whether we're in chocolate land or non-chocolate land. But I really like the Haribo blackberries and raspberries.
Ooh. Oh, I love those. Those are
But
really
they're
good.
perfect because they're crunchy
I
on the
love yes.
outside and pushy on the inside. But like that's not a Halloween candy. That's just candy.
No, but it's delicious.
It is delicious, but no one gives those. Can you
No.
imagine a house that gave whole bags of Haribo? Like that would
It would be
be
the most
like
popular house.
the giant candy bar to like a whole different level.
I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood that, like, took Halloween very seriously, where it was, like, the entire main street, houses on either side coordinated to, like,
Mhm.
create just it and the candy game was on point. But also, now as an adult, I'm like, I don't wanna just have king size candy bars at the time.
No, no, it's not the same. And also some of the fun of Halloween is the little candy bar.
Mhm.
Like if you
Yeah,
go to one house and they give you a full size one, that's super cool. But if you just had a bag of full size candy bars, I don't know. I also feel like candy is not as exciting for children today. Like, or not for mine, because I guess because we didn't really do a whole lot with preventing you from eating. So they were
mhm.
excited, but they get candy all it's just like, everybody gives them candy. The grocery store, the bank, there's candy, just
That's true.
candy everywhere. So it's not quite the thrill that it
Mhm.
used to.
Our four-year-old is, like, slowly discovering sweets. She had no sweet tooth forever, but now like, she got a lollipop at Trader Joe's and was like she didn't know what to do with it, though. She just, like was, like, barely looking at this is the last get to know you question. What is your favorite tarot card to pull for other people, and what is your favorite one for yourself? Or what is the one that you like to see?
Oh, that is a really good question. I kind of like to pull temperance because it
Mhm,
sounds boring. Like it makes people think of Carrie Nation, but it's really a card about balancing and like which part of your life is taking up too much of your energy right now. So I like that one because it's not what it seems and it has a lot of food for thought in it. Um, for me personally, I kind of like it when the Empress turns up because, that's like just um just really good energy.
All right. Well, thank you for indulging my spooky get to know you. Um, and now as we are transitioning again
I
to
love it.
celebrate playing the witch card,
Gary's gonna say
um, could you tell us?
goodbye.
Oh, bye, Blackberry.
Oh,
Uh, could you tell us a little bit more about the book and what readers can expect?
yes. So the description, I say grown up Gilmore Girls meets practical magic is pretty accurate. I mean, the question is sort of, if you've ever considered the possibility of Lorelai also having a deck of magic tarot cards and how dangerous that would be, you understand where my protagonist was coming from when she stole them from her mother as a child. So that's the deal. My protagonist is she's the daughter of a teenage mother with a deck of magical tarot cards, and at some point during their childhood she steals them away because reasons, and she has hidden those things but good, and now she's a mother of a teenager herself. She's heading home to the small town where her mother did not let her grow up. She's going to take over her grandmother's bakery, and she is invited by the town matriarch to participate in the town's grand Halloween, and by making cookies. So she sets out to make some black cats, some pumpkins, your normal Halloween cookies, and magic takes over, and she discovers that what she has done is to recreate her family's tarot deck in cookie form. And it goes from there. Those tarot decks turn out to be very aware that everyone in this town has a lot of secrets, and they're determined that the truth will out. So.
And
There's also
so
a glorious moment when her mom shows up with her ex in the trunk of her car. So
that's
kind of my like fun tagline. It's all fun and games till your mom shows up with your ex in the trunk of her car.
yeah. Well, in the ex's car too, right? Just
It is
like,
the ex's car, but
did
that
she
gets too
steal
complicated.
his
It's not
car?
a good sentence then. But
No,
yeah,
that's true.
like his car,
Um,
and it's pretty awesome.
so in the acknowledgments for the book, you say that your interest in tarot started at age 14. Would you mind sharing that story?
So I don't remember how the tarot cards came into my possession. Probably it was a Halloween purchase at the bookstore in the mall, as one does. And I being me, so my parents shipped me off to a church camp with a friend. We were not a church going people at this point, or a little bit, but not in the way this friend's. And so this friend, I think they wanted to take a vacation without me. So they threw me in the car with this friend's parents and shipped us off to a church camp. And I, being a 14-year-old without churchy predilections, thought it was a brilliant idea to bring my tarot cards. So, and as one does at a church camp, I found other people who would be interested in tarot cards. And I just remember reading for one kid in particular and having it be, this just really strike us both as this huge moment of revelation, and the cards showing him so much about who he was. And, we were 14, so we were overwhelmed by it. We thought it was amazing. And I kept them around. I came in and out of tarot cards as a young adult, and then as an adult have really come back to them more as a mechanism for exploring your own story. And for what I find great about them is you often pull a card, and what it suggests is, there's a story about such and such going on around you, and maybe some part of your life is at this point. So it forces you to think about, well, sure, I am where I am right now, but what came before this and what might come after it, and what might I want to be considering. So I don't think of them as a fortune telling thing at all. That's a fun piece of the book, in which Flair sort of has to figure out what the cards are to her in the same way. I think of them more as pushing you to just think about your situation a little bit differently. If you're open to it. If you're not open to it, then they're just cards.
So when developing sort of the magic system, meaning just like the cards, Flair's attitude towards it, the other family, and all of that, between the magic system and the town history for Rattleboro, what sort of what did you take inspiration from, and what sort of research did you do?
Too much, most of which is not in the book. There's an entire Civil War subplot that is not in there. Um, Kansas had a whole, well, you probably don't know, but Kansas had a whole free state thing going, and anyway, that didn't end up in there. I did. I was. I had not really looked into the history of tarot cards, so to realize, and again, it's almost hard for me to remember what of this history is actually in the book and what is just sort of background for me. But to realize that they really had come into the forefront more around the time of the Civil War was really interesting to me. And the fact that they're not really, they don't come from any particular spiritual tradition. They're very European. They come from sort of a lot of games and fortune telling games and spirituality and spiritualism. And the people who put them together they weren't like, here are these cards that are my heritage from witches who came before. I mean, sometimes they were, but they tended to be lying. So I guess I was really intrigued by how much they can be whatever you make them. So I definitely leaned on that. And also in terms of the time period, it was interesting to me that, people would probably or could very well have been creating their own, which is
Hmm.
which is what happens with the family deck in Flair's book.
Yeah. Speaking of the research, is there a particular thing from your research or fun factor, something you found that you were like, that's kind of just cool, but that didn't make it into the book?
Um, I don't know that there's anything like that, but fellow readers, when I tell you this, will immediately recognize that when I envisioned the kind of woman who would have gone to Europe and learned about tarot cards and come back and sort of brought that back home to Kansas and created her own, I was totally picturing Amy March. That was like my mental vision of the whole thing. So it's not exactly a fact so much as it is just an insight on. People always ask you, well, what actress were you thinking of when you made that character? And I not less that, more of a literary character.
Nice. I like that. Uh, in Rattleboro, like in this little sort of town that you've created, which has all of the sort of quirky small town vibes in a lot of ways, what is your favorite detail about the town, and like what makes this town special?
Well, this is, super Halloweeny. So the way that the town matriarch has really controlled the look of the Halloween and kept it looking like I strongly prefer your eerie, spooky, like I said, spooky, not scary.
Hmm.
So, she's got this steampunk Victorian Halloween vibe going, and there are no bloody monster plastic things or anything like that. So I like that she exerted her control over the aesthetics. Fall aesthetic, darn it, not that's what we want. We want it to look like that. So yeah, I love that. And then there's a lot of details about the town, again, because things don't get into.
Hmm.
Books are too long when I write them. Anyway, I also am envisioning one of the characters has a bookshop, and I like to envision like the sidewalk with the bookshop cart out front. I have just sort of the exact vision of what that would be like and how it would be decorated with Halloween, in a bookish kind of way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, when I think of things like that surround like these like the small towns, or when we think about, I love like thinking about the lives beyond the story of a lot of like the smaller characters, of the bookshop owner, the like the other families, because there's got to be more families than who we focus on and things like that. And you like how those things slowly evolve. It's always fun. I don't know, like imagining what else we don't get to see.
In the
Um,
original version of the book, there were a lot more coven members. So
yeah.
there was a librarian, she doesn't make it in. Um, there was another, I can't remember what the other person's oh, she was the librarian also ran the town school library. And then there was someone else. Anyway, there were a couple more um, coven members that I was sad to let them go. I was like, people can so remember that many names. My editor disagreed. So
Um,
out they went.
would you ever want to like explore like the any other kind of towns persons in other
Uh,
books?
I don't know. Maybe that's the kind of thing that often depends on your publisher and how that turns out. Although some people really plunge in with the idea, um, they've got a lot of. You can see when you read that, and I love a good series. You can see, oh, I bet we're gonna get so and so's story next. Um, I would. I actually have, and it's not in there, but there's or maybe no, that was like one of the final cuts. So there was this woman in Kansas. So there's a particular little town in Kansas that I envision when I envision
Hmm.
Rattleboro. I did not grow up there. My grandparents aren't from there or anything like that, but I know exactly what it is and I know what it looks like. And
Hmm.
there is this woman who wrote feminist westerns in like 1910, and I have there's one of them available in, I mean, say what we will about Google Books, and we do not like it. The fact that this feminist Western was in there was glorious. And I have sort of I sort of have a loose idea around her history and maybe
Hmm.
something that might be fun to explore. But I
Oh, that
haven't done
sounds
anything with
cool.
it. Right now, what I'm working on is a straight up rom-com, which I haven't tried
Nice.
yet. That's going to be fun.
Yeah. Um, nice. So, instead of continuing to talk about the characters that are on the margins of the story, we're gonna shift to talk about the main families that we have. But so in the book, there are sort of two. It seems like there's two main multi-generational families that we get. We get the Oaks, which I'll have a couple questions about in a second, but then we have Cynthia, Flair, and Lucy. So grandmother, mother, daughter is how
Hmm.
I've been trying to stick to in terms of, but it obviously like there's two daughters there and two mothers there, and so there's all sorts of overlaps. But between them, between Cynthia and Flair, her daughter, and then between Flair and Lucy, there's a lot of like tension at this moment between them for their relationships. Um, who of these three was the most fun to write, and who was the most difficult?
I do I love Sin now. As she's the grandmother in this, or she's Flair's. I really think of her as Flair's mother, but she's also Lucy's
Hmm.
grandmother. And now she is a person who has really figured out who she is and is doing it all in. I mean, she writes smutty vampire romance, and she's turned it into a whole thing. And Flair has zero respect for her and really zero knowledge of what she's doing, because what Flair's doing so hard is trying not to be her. Um, and so writing Sin now and her relationship with Lucy was probably the most fun. The hardest thing for me, and it's only small bits in it, was Sin when Sin was not put together. The mother that Flair has excellent reason not to trust,
Hmm.
and then turning that person into the person that she is now, and kind of um, showing you. And I don't think this is giving Flair just doesn't understand her mother, which
Hmm.
who does, right? So
Yeah, I really like Sin. I love her tour bus basically, or her like production crew.
I know.
Um,
It's so much fun. That kind of thing is so much fun to think of. And there's that spooky trail in the book. We
mhm.
have done a spooky trail on our property for many, many years. We're a couple years out from, we stopped in 2020 and we haven't been able to pull it back together. Um, but I very quickly ran into the limits of my technical ability, and also my neighbor's willingness to like climb trees and jump down on people and things like this. they were surprisingly not always willing to do that. I told um, one of my best friends, this her book up here, Serena Bowen, and her birthday's right around Halloween. And I was like, this year for your birthday, I promise not to make you dress up as a witch and stand in the woods holding a pot of hot chocolate, like I've done in the past, or once a zombie. Actually, we did that. I forget. Oh, anyway, the point was you can do so much when you write this stuff in a book. You can just make it perfect. Same with the Chicken Sisters and the artist. Amanda is 4 times the artist, a zillion times the artist that I will ever be. But imagining what she might draw was so much fun.
Gotcha. I love that the spooky trail is like inspired by. I guess I've never been on a spooky trail, so is it like? Is it scary spooky or is it spooky spooky?
Well, as we do it, it started out with very little kids, so we would be fairly tender with them, but we very quickly started to jump out from behind things. So my oldest child sort of got the tender version, and this was like a neighborhood thing. Really, it was me and my friends. It's not even really the neighborhood. And it was almost a test of friendship for me. Like, are you the kind of person that will come and jump out of, hiding places that I give you in the woods wearing the costume that I have put you in? Or will you blow it and like tell the children that you are not really a scary creature? That's not cool. So, in our case, we really did we live in the woods. The minute I start explaining this to people, they're typically very horrified, but we would send them out to one part of the woods and they would have to walk through it. It would be barely lit. And one year we gave them glow sticks. They were small enough. And we said, this will go out in 20 minutes. So you better run. It totally did. And it was just a regular glow stick.
Oh,
and we had kids who would come and do it once or twice, and then they would come back the next year and their parents would be all out, and the kid would take one look at the beginning and just be like, there is a kid going to the Olympics who refused to do this spooky trail.
Oh. I probably would refuse. I love reading about haunted houses and watching haunted houses. I'm a mess in a haunted situation. Like when things are gonna jump at me, no.
100%. The one thing we didn't do was touch them. Unless it was your actual child, you were allowed to touch your actual child.
Gotcha.
Or if it was my child,
I think that's a good rule.
We were allowed to do whatever they wanted with my children, because all my children wanted was to be more and more scared. So, and it got harder. Like they would get older, and it got harder. My husband, of late, the last year was like, why don't we just send them out in the woods and we'll put no lights and no decorations, and there'll be no one out there. And they'll just spend the whole time walking along waiting for something horrible to happen.
I was going to say the anticipation. Yeah. So in thinking of like the way that the relationships between Sin and Flair, and then kind of Flair and Lucy they're really, especially with Flair and Lucy, they're at a moment of transition, just kind of the moving, and Lucy's becoming a teenager, and does Flair trust her? And that sort of relationship is very much in flux. And for much of the book, it seems very fraught. Or like what, but sorry, I skipped to the second question. What were you trying to show with the sort of different ways that these mothers and daughters are sort of challenging one another in their relationships? And what advice would you give the characters?
So I think what's really striking in all of these relationships is that all of these women just want the others to be happy. Really, they do. They want the best Flair wants the best for her mother and her daughter. Her mother wants the best. Like, they all want the best for each other. The problem is they don't understand that your idea of best and my idea of best are not the same thing. And they really, especially Flair, want her version of best. And figuring out that that's just not a thing you can have, even if you can maybe magic it up, is a big part of the journey that Flair is on here. So, the advice that I would give would mean there was no book, but it would be, well, actually that's kind of not true. It'd just be a very different book, because one of the fun things about playing the witch card from my perspective as a writer is that, so for example, in her boots, my protagonist makes are really terrible choices. Just again and again, like you really are kind of going, oh, just don't. That's not playing the witch card is not like that. There are no good choices. She really just gets chased around by the magic into a there's there's not you're not like, oh, if you would just do such and such, because there is no just such and such. She really just has to punch her way out and through, which is it's a difference in this book. But anyway, if I were going to give her advice, it would be, you got to help Lucy be Lucy, not help Lucy be Flair.
Nice.
Lucy be your daughter, the 13-year-old.
Nice. So without giving too much away, we know a lot less about the Oakes family, which is kind of one of the other founding families of the town. Loretta, Jude, and Renee. How was writing those characters different from or similar to the process for Sin, Flair, and Lucy?
I think I start every character with, I can't even name my characters till I know who their parents are, because their parents name them, right? So, Sin would very much name a child Flair. She would totally stick you with, think Flair's name, or at one point it was Cleopatra, and I changed it. But, and so to write the other family as well, I really needed to know, where do these people come from, and what did the earlier generations want for these characters? So, it's this question of, what do your parents want for you? And there's also, of course, what do your parents want from you? I think that really guides a lot of my writing. And you can't even, you can't write the parent without thinking, what did their parents want? That's, as a reader, something that I find frustrating is a story in which a main character is guided and shaped by mistakes made by their parents, but their parents have no reason for the bad thing they did, other than they're just bad, or they're just homophobic, or what, you don't get this sort of, and I don't need a lot, but I need something. There's something I can think of that I read where someone's parents just basically had completely disowned them and didn't talk to them at all. And the whole book, I kept reading along going, at some point, we're going to find out why the parents never returned this person's phone calls. We never did. And that was a disappointment. It was otherwise a great book. And also, there's tons of books like that. I'm not going to diss somebody's book. I really enjoyed it, but I did just keep thinking, when's that going to happen? Never did.
Yeah. Seeing the sort of intergenerational sort of
reasons for even the peripheral characters to do what the reason can't be to make the character be this way. Anyway, that's not, it's just where I come from with it. I really need to know who made them.
Makes sense. So the next question is going to be about Jude. So who is Jude? Why, or what inspired Jude, and who he was, right? Or I guess if Amy March is Flair, where did Jude come from? And then I'm going to ask you about fated mates.
He's definitely a fated mate. That's, absolutely, that is 100% there. It's not as strong as I even maybe wanted it to be. Who is Jude? I don't have a literary model for. There was a moment when there was a Darcy, a sort of a Darcy conversation, but I feel like that's not really the way his and Flair's history evolved. So, he's a lot of things. He's like John Cusack and Say Anything with his jukebox. He's Luke, if it's Gilmore Girls. He's definitely got some Darcy going on. He's very, he ends up being a real. He's not a cinnamon roll because he's pretty tough on the outside. Anyway, he's a lot of things. He's kind of just uniquely him, and some of the reason for that is what he figures out as the book goes on about his own history, which would be spoilers. But there aren't that many male characters in literature with his particular problem.
Mhm. And he's also a chocolatier.
He is a
He
chocolatier.
can keep anyone in chocolate.
Yeah, I mean, that just strikes me as, it makes him immediately desirable, right? He makes his own
I mean,
chocolates, and they're amazing, and they do, like,
mhm,
fantastical chemical things, which, once again, fun things you can imagine that are harder to pull off in real life. So yeah, I like that he would understand the art behind what Flair does, and there is
mhm.
definitely art behind it. um I like that they would sort of share that. I also
Um,
I wasn't entirely sure it was probably what his mother wanted for him. And again, books get too long when you stuff everything that you think about in there. But I'm not sure his mother chocolatier was maybe not what she immediately would have had in mind.
mhm, nice. I will say there is a chocolate bar in a San Diego chocolate brand.
Ciao.
Their locals, yeah, Chow. They do
See,
Pop Rocks.
I love that. Yes, I
Yeah,
stole that. I
nice.
stole that with the Pop Rocks in it.
It
I
really made
adore
me
that.
want a firecracker bar.
They're so good. They're excellent with Dr. Pepper. Strange pairing, but trust me,
Oh,
it really was.
I I believe you. My
Yeah,
favorite thing to
totally
pair
stole
is
that.
like a chocolate covered gummy bear and like sour cola bottles.
Ooh.
It's delicious. So I believe that chocolate
Candy
and
pairings, that's,
it
the
would work.
classy. Yeah.
I mean, how many flavors are in Dr. Pepper? Isn't it like famously like
Million?
there's 30 something or so? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Chocolate's got to be in there. But to go back to the fated mates, you do say that they are fated mates in the interview that's at the end of the book. Um, I'm a big sucker for fated mates. Just one of my favorites. So, what do you like about that trope, and how do you think Jude and Flair sort of make the trope their own in that way?
I like it because I there's something about the, like, sort of irresistible force, and the idea that two people would really have to get past any differences that they have or anything. They're I almost feel like it's a way to take the good things about what marriage used to be supposed to. I mean, nobody wants a system in which marriage is a thing you can't get out of. Women, least of
Mhm,
all. This is a very, very bad idea. But the idea that there would be someone that you were fated to be with, where both of you just had to, like, work things out because you were gonna be together, um, and both of you want to work it out, that I love. Like, that's kind of, it's like all the good stuff that marriage might have been in a, less patriarchal society or something. Um, anyway, so I think that's what I like about it. And what do they bring to this trope? Um, I think the fact that they really, they really just sort of tore it up and threw it aside. And managed, in Flair's case, to get out and have a kid, and sort of insist on not being the fated mate,
mhm,
and making her own way. And it didn't necessarily work out all that great, and yet it does, because you end up with a kid, right? So she's happy.
mhm.
Maybe it's not necessarily super atypical for the trope, but um, I like the way they find their way back to each other too, and I like they find their way back to each other. It's not what the story centers around by any means, and it's also not like at the end exactly. I mean, it kind of is, but they
Mhm.
figure out what went wrong between them and why pretty early on, and I like that because it gives them a chance to to be together.
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
Not be together, but to get to know each other again. That's
Mhm.
what
Yeah, to sort of reset a little bit and figure it out from where they are now. Um, what are your if somebody were to ask you for a book recommendation about witches, fictional, non-fictional too, what are your favorite witch books?
I love the Once and Future Witches. That one was excellent. It took me a little bit to get into it, but I really adore it. I definitely I love Lana Harper and Aaron Sterling and those,
Mhm.
the small town romances. Lana Harper, especially. I really do adore those. I'm looking over here at my collection of
Mhm.
of witchy books. Um, I like Cackle too by Rachel
Hmm.
Harrison. That is a big
Okay.
favorite, and that's definitely different. It is a small town witch. It is not it is not cozy, but it's also not scary. It's just it'll give you kind of gives you a different angle on the whole thing.
Nice. Um, Rachel Harrison is who wrote Such Big Teeth, correct?
Sharp teeth also, that's
Sharp
the one.
Teeth. Sharp
one-
Teeth.
Cackle is a little softer than such
Okay.
sharp teeth. I love such sharp teeth. The it's like a really visceral exploration of what it would be like to become a werewolf and dealing with it. It's a fascinating blend of like this is the reality of this situation, but also it's werewolves. So I love that. And she has a new one, The Bad Blood,
Black Sheep.
Black Sheep. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm excited about that, but I haven't read it yet.
That one's on my spooky season stack that
Yeah,
is
it's kind
infinitely
of done one.
growing, basically.
Not out for another week or two.
And we are big fans of Once and Future Witches and Alex Harrow
Yeah,
in
oh
all
yeah.
things. So
All things, all things. She's great. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. The Constance Sayers. What is that? What is that book? Oh, A Witch in Time. That's fun too.
nice. Um, let's see. We do have an audience question. What romance trope are you most excited to write moving forward, and which one would you not touch with a 10-foot pole?
Um, I really second chance romance is definitely like it seems to be one of my high school friend was like, "Why do you keep hooking people back up with high school people?" And I was like, "No, it's not. Like, I'm, you know everyone I dated. I've got no interest in going back to any of them. It's just fun. It's that same like
Mhm.
imagining. I think it's that imagining that there's someone that's there, that was meant for you. So I'm excited to come back to that. And I just figured out a way to stick my two characters in the book I'm working on in an only one bed situation. And I do that.
Nice.
I do like some good only one bed. What else do I like? Um, I have not done Secret Baby, but I think I might at some point. Secret Baby has
Nice.
so much going for it.
Nice. Um, oh, the question came up on the screen. That's
Yeah,
funny.
it's like
Um,
underneath.
yeah. I love Second Chance. I think it's because I like as a child like lived for any crossover episodes on TV
Yes.
shows where characters like meet again,
Mm-hmm.
or like the moment in Prince Caspian where all the kings and queens of Lore they come and Caspian's like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "Well, let me tell
Right.
you."
Yeah. Let me tell you
Any
about
sort of
it.
return like that, I love.
Are you an Austen person? Jane Austen?
I am.
So did
Hmm.
you do the whole Murder of Mr. Wicklow?
I I've read Murder of Mr. Wickham.
I love that
I
so
haven't
much.
read
The other one, the late Mrs.
the
Willoughby, is also very
late.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited. I really liked the first one. I thought Claudia did such a good job, like with the dialogue of it.
And with like moving the romance of every
Hmm.
single one of those characters to where it would be, like, in the sort of the
Hmm.
world of she put them each in time according to Jane Austen, and then like progressing them. So like some of them had only been married for a little bit, some of them had been married forever. Man, I thought I knew my Austen. She knows her Austen.
She knows it. Yeah, we did an event for the Murder of Mr. Wickham, and I was her conversation partner, and she said she was just listening to the audiobooks again and again for
I'm sure. Yeah, yeah.
uh,
I loved
so
I
good.
loved that. So yeah, same. I love me a good crossover episode. Please let
Mhm.
characters of this appear on that, and please write a book where they all match together. Absolutely.
Um, see, not seeing any more audience questions. What? I have one last question, but I try to keep it for the end, basically. Um, I have another sort of book recommendation question. We asked about witches. This is one I like to ask. I often ask it of my students when I teach, but I also like to ask all of the authors is if somebody wanted to get to know you better, what book other than your own would you recommend they read?
Hmm. Um, Asked a similar question recently. I said
Okay.
Gaudy Night, Dorothy
Hmm.
Sayers. That might still be a good choice. It's probably my favorite. Um, Go back to read over and over again. It's kind of a strange choice because it's part of a series of mysteries, but I am not the only one to think that that particular book stands out amongst all of the mysteries that Dorothy Sayers wrote.
Nice. All right. And so we are kind of coming up on time. So, oh no, another question. Because sometimes when you like close, it like gets
Right?
people
You're like,
more.
oh, there, and people are like, oh, wait, I have a question.
Is there a specific structure or series of questions that you ask yourself when building a story or character?
Um, there's a particular question that I go back to again and again. And this I've already mentioned Serena once in this episode, but Serena thinks I told her to do this, and I think she told me to do this. So maybe we heard someone else. But the thing that I go back to again and again as I'm putting together a book is don't make it more complicated, make it worse. Not like worse as a book, but worse for your character. Like don't make the
Gotcha.
situation more complicated. Don't pile on more people or more twists or more turns. Make it worse, and that's um sometimes I think, well, what would be the worst first thing that they could do in this situation? But mostly I think about like what would be the worst result that they could get. What do they fear? What do they fear most? And if they faced that fear, how would it change them? That's that's at the core of it.
Nice. All right. Well, uh, my last question is in the spirit of your dedication, which is why I'm doing it. So, the first question that I have is when is it important to ask, are you a witch or not? And if that moment is now, are you a witch or not?
In writing, which is the way that I meant that you have to ask yourself that when you are deciding, um, does my external vision of like the world and the expectations around this book control this book, or do I control
Mhm.
this book? And the answer has got to be no. I this I decide. I make the rules. Um, so yeah, and yeah, I am a witch, and I do come back to that too. It came up. Um, I I actually I think I'm gonna have an essay come out about this, but it came up because I had magicked my characters into a corner. Like I had
Mhm.
reached a point where the way that the tarot cards did what they did, um, really just sort of boxed us all into um, an inability to like sort of use them to move forward. And I complained to Serena and my friend Jess, like I can't fix this. Like there was a lot of cursing in this particular text because we have a constant text, and they responded with in one case, well, who made this magic, and then the other case, are you a witch or not, Hermione? So I was like, okay, I'm a witch. I can find our way out of this situation. And
Nice.
obviously, I eventually did, or I hope I did.
I think so. Um, well, on that note, I want to thank you again for joining me for the conversation about the book. To
Thank
hold it
you.
up
It's been really
as
fun.
much as
I love
possible.
Halloween. I love Halloween speed round.
I mean, I should have come up with more. I have so many. I I don't know. I, I I've been rediscovering horror and like childhood horror that I liked, like when I was a kid, like spooky
Hmm.
things that then I feel like I went through a phase in my life where I didn't. And so now I'm like all in on spooky again and scary. Um, but thank you everyone for watching. Please support our wonderful author by purchasing Playing the Witch card. And if you would like to also get a book plate, a signed book plate in the deal, you can purchase them from Mysterious Galaxy. And there's a link right below our faces that says signed book plates.
I made them
And if
witch
you,
cards, like the book plates. I didn't keep any; they all got sent to you. But I turned the book plate this way, and then I drew a witch card
um,
for
okay,
everyone, and they're all totally different because I couldn't quite figure out what
amazing.
a witch card would be. So if you need your own witch card, that's what will get pasted in.
Yeah, okay. Signed book plate, witch card, and book,
Yeah,
and supporting a great author.
and a
Awesome.
bookstore, all the
Yeah,
things.
and a good bookstore. And getting the ball rolling on spooky season. It is that time of year. We are there. I'm excited. Um, and I was excited to have this conversation with you. So thank you again. We're gonna sign off and say good night to everybody.
Thank
Or good afternoon or evening, depending on where you are.